While tonight you will have an opportunity to learn more about their stories, I'd like to share mine with you. I am a part of City Year Boston, which is a national nonprofit uniting diverse young people for 10 months of full-time community service.
Do you have any more of those? Yeah. You want to hold this one? Sure.
My name is Leah Rose Rodriguez, but a name is just a name, unless it has a message. My life is my message. I was born and raised in the Rocky Mountains of Colorado. I have found that seeing beauty in nature helps me to see the beauty in people. An old friend back home told me she was applying to City Year in Boston, and I immediately applied. Not because I found a nonprofit that I wanted to be a part of, but I had found a way out of the jail sentence I was serving, living with an abusive alcoholic. My childhood regularly involved shielding my mama and baby brother Xander as my papa's scapegoat. After a while, the twisted way he saw the world was the way he trained me to see it, and I overdosed in an attempt to take my own life. That was 2 years ago. Through my recovery, I realized my survival was inevitably due to my purpose on earth, but especially how I have risen stronger after every time I have fallen. I had found writing as my weapon against my post-traumatic stress disorder. A year after the hospitalization, I returned to the same facility, not as a patient, but as a guest speaker. I shared my life story and spoken word for those adolescents and saw their eyes glisten as the light began to emerge at the end of their own tunnels. My ability to find common ground through words enabled and inspired me to tutor the young writers I work with at the Haley School in Roslindale. I know I can be somebody that they can look up to, and maybe one of the only positive influences in their lives. Because that's who I am to my brother. I break down stereotypes every day, and no matter what I do wrong, I'm still my brother's personal hero. I see him looking up at me in their eyes every day I serve. I want these students to know that my life has become my message. Through my work last year in this program, I was validated and supported through my struggles. Now I provide that validation and self-worth for these youth through an optimistic attitude. The age gap between the young people and students allows City Year to be old enough to be a trusted mentor, but young enough to be a friend. And that's what's missing from a lot of their lives. I know that because that's what was missing from mine. I live in the neighborhoods they live in and walk home to see everything they see. I witness drug deals and hear gunshots as they do, but I don't want that to be the only familiarity. When they see those red jackets come through, they smile and wave. Not because they know that person, but they know how great they feel about themselves when they work with us. Great enough to finish grade school, great enough to pursue college, great enough to give their kids a better life than they had. And that's why I serve. Because I find that I fall, then get up, let up, and set up to never quit, finding acceptance of self and peace within. Positivity puts your feet back on the ground every moment, a chance to turn it all around. Being real is honest. Let go of the facade, because genuine personality will get you the nod. I like people with kindness, compassion, and peace, the qualities that make this world a little more free. Introducing one of the founders of City Year Boston. Khazei helped create the opportunity for somebody like me to serve. He and I share the belief that when people serve, they are forever changed. And after many committed years of laying the foundation of service, he became involved in policy through a new program called ServiceNation. He is a bridge builder, a man who got President Obama and Senator McCain to share a stage to talk about service. Ladies and gentlemen, Mr. Khazei.
Thank you, Leah, and thank you for your incredible service and sharing your story with all of us and the inspiration that you are to me and everybody else at City Year and what you're doing with your life. And it's an honor to be introduced by you. This is an awesome crowd. I love the energy and the music and just the dynamism. You know, when we were first starting City Year over 20 years ago, we said, you know, if we could only make service cool and hip. Well, now that we're here with Kenneth Cole, I know we've arrived. So, But, Ken, I think you got to hook me up. I'm really not dressed properly here. If my wife Vanessa were here, she'd be like, come on, Kenneth, help them out a little bit. But it's great to be here. And, all of us in Boston are familiar with Red Sox Nation. Yeah? Well, we're here tonight because we need to become a service nation. That's what it's about. A nation where everyone, as part of our lives, commits to doing some type of volunteer service. This is the kind of life that Kenneth Cole's led, and it's the kind of life he's leading now with the Awearness campaign. A nation where when we meet each other, we say, where did you do your service? That becomes the most commonly asked question because we know that's the icebreaker. Not necessarily where do you work or where do you go to school, but where do you do your service? Because we're all in it together. That's what ServiceNation is all about. It's imagining that each generation can become a greatest generation because we've all served together. It's imagining that we have confronted our problems in education and poverty and the environment because we've called on our greatest natural resource, our citizens, ourselves, to say, yes, we can take on these problems, and yes, we can solve them. I learned something starting city here in Columbus, Ohio, about 15 years ago. Think about this. In Ohio, and now in many other states across the country, they build prisons based on the 3rd grade reading level. Think about that, yeah. Think about that. In the United States of America, we have given up on children, 9 years old. I've got a daughter who's 6 years old, and when I think she's in 1st grade now, and I think, okay, 2 more grades, and they're going to survey all of her classmates and other kids her age, and they're going to say, you know what, we know how many prisons we're going to need. This is a country that defeated the Soviet Union, that put a man on the moon, that invented the internet, that's led the world, and yet we can't educate our children. And we give up on that. Well, if we become a service nation, we can educate our children. There are young people like Leah and others all across this country who are willing to take the time to teach those kids to read. There are effective service programs, not just City Year, but Teach for America, and Jumpstart, and Citizen Schools, and Youth Build, and so many others that have waiting lists of people ready to serve. That can educate those children, that can clean up our environment, that can fight poverty, and most of all, that can say, we're all in this together, that it's unacceptable to build prisons based on 3rd grade reading levels, and that we can take these challenges on. That's what Service Nation is all about, is saying that we can do this. We need to look back to ourselves. We're at a very important moment for this whole cause. We're at a tipping point. I've never been more optimistic about the chance to make this happen in our country, and yet we just can't rely on a new president. And we're lucky to have a president that is very committed to this, and a first lady. Both of them have come from the service movement themselves. And we're lucky to have leadership by Senator Kennedy, who's partnered with Senator Hatch in a bipartisan effort to take the whole idea of service to scale. And we were honored to have them, and Senator Obama, President Obama, and Senator McCain, as Leah said, at our summit, and their leadership. But at the end of the day, it's always been citizens and citizen movements that have made big change happen in this country. It was the citizen soldiers right here in Boston who did the Boston Tea Party and fired the shots at Lexington and Concord and at Bunker Hill, who said, we're going to have a revolution that made the founders possible. It was the abolitionists and the Underground Railroad leaders that made the Emancipation Proclamation possible. It was the suffragists who forced Wilson to embrace the 19th Amendment. He didn't support it. He didn't support giving women the right to vote. But their work got him to endorse it. It was the trade unionists that laid the foundation for the New Deal. It was the civil rights students who did the marches and the freedom rides and the sit-ins that led JFK and LBJ to say this is the moral issue of our time. It was students in Soweto in South Africa. It was students in Tiananmen Square in 1989 in China. And it was young people in this election who organized and turned out in droves that said, we're going to have a new direction in this country. So it's up to us. It's up to all of us. We just can't rely on a new president, especially if this idea is going to happen. And I'm so honored that we have the leadership of Kenneth Cole in this movement. We were so excited to have him at the Service Nation Summit. He is someone who's been a leader in business, but he's also been a leader in philanthropy, and he's been a leader in social justice. He's someone who lives his life by his values, and has translated that not only into his company, but into everything that he does, and the whole world is better for it. He was one of the pioneers to say, we're not just going to fight AIDS, we're going to find a cure for AIDS. And he's been on that issue for more than 20 years. He's been a fighter in fighting homelessness and poverty and saying we can eradicate that. And now I'm so honored that he's taken up another step with this awareness campaign to say all of us have to be involved in service and volunteerism. We were excited to have Kenneth at our summit. We're so honored that he's taken up this cause, that he's putting his energy, his idealism, the resources of his company, his extraordinary network of friends to say, this is something that has to become just part of who we are as Americans. We have to recapture that tradition. And it's a great book. I encourage you to buy it and to read it and to share it with your friends. And the wonderful thing of how Kenneth has done this now because of the website, we can all participate. Every single, I know I'm preaching to the choir tonight, every single one of you has a story that could be an essay in this book. And you can contribute to that. So I hope that you'll buy this book. All the profits go to good causes. I hope you'll share it with your friends. And it's my honor to introduce to you the man who put this whole book together, the author of the Awareness Campaign and the Awareness book, a leader that we can all be proud of to call our friend, Mr. Kenneth Cole. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Alan is an extraordinary guy. And, you know, in this kind of field, this very complicated, not very clear world of service and volunteerism, Alan is in so many ways defined the model. And he did it when he helped co-found City Year, which is, and became an inspiration in the model of AmeriCorps, which are some of the leading case studies and examples of how to make it work, how to make service work. And at the end of the day, we all know that's the only way we're going to accomplish our needs individually, collectively, is through service. And Alan has done this legislatively, he's done it programmatically, he's done it passionately, he's been inspirational, he's inspired me, he's inspired so many thousands of people to do what they do. He's really an extraordinary guy. My only problem with the guy is that he believes that what you stand for is more important than what you stand in. Leah, thank you for your kind words, and thank you for your passion and your inspiration. For a young woman, you're wise beyond your years, and I appreciate your sharing your thoughts with us. I also want to just acknowledge those big brutes in the back from the Boston Bruins. And these guys are just great guys, and they do what they do, but they also represent the community in ways, and they get involved when they can. And on behalf of the Bruins Foundation, they invest in their resources, their time, and also in various community initiatives to assist in helping enrich the lives of children throughout New England. And we're really proud to have them as our friends and be able to support them. It's an awful joke, but they believe, like we do, in the value of checking. It's a terrible joke. But I couldn't come up with a better one. But these guys are amazing. So then also there's another guy here who's an extraordinary role model for me. I'm actually going to let him say something because he's so wonderfully articulate about this issue, and he has inspired me over the years by not just the role he's played in this world, but he says it, he does it, and you may have read one of his numerous books, but his name is Alan Dershowitz. And Alan is a legal scholar, distinguished Harvard law professor, well-known commentator and advocate on virtually every social issue. And he really goes his way. He's not influenced by what wisdom might and popular opinion might incline one to believe. And I've been so impressed with the positions he's taken on so many issues, because I've had that same conviction, but I'm not sure I would have been able to stand up the way Alan has. And in fact, he was just telling me just now, and Alan writes in the book, by the way, about the importance. There's 86 essays, and everybody writes about what inspired them, or they pick a specific issue or something they feel is important, and then they tell us what they think we can do. And Alan talks about why professionals who have access to this monopoly of providing this professional service should all be required to serve. Not much different than what Alan was saying, that we all should be, that culturally should be inspired to want to do that. And Alan was just telling me he just had a case reversed today of a 16-year-old young man who served 5 to 6 years in prison for wrongful imprisonment, and he did it pro bono. So he lives his message, and he does it every day, and he's wonderfully inspiring.
Thank you, Ken. What a privilege and pleasure to be in the company of such distinguished people who lead the way in public service. But let's face reality. These are the times that try the souls of men and women who want to give. Economic times are very, very difficult. Many of you are thinking about your own livings, about your own jobs, about your own families. And this is the time when we really test our commitment to service. It's easy to do public service when times are good. It's easy to do public service when it's extra. I'll tell you an interesting story, which is why I fell in love with my wife, who's here somewhere today. There she is. When I first met her, she asked me for some advice. I figured, oh, another woman, she's interested in my free legal advice. She said she was applying for a scholarship at Boston University. She was getting her PhD, and she listed among her expenses $100 for charity. And the people at BU said, no, 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 you can't give charity, you're on scholarship. Charity is not a necessity, it is a luxury. And Carolyn said, not in my tradition. She said in the tradition that she comes from, the Jewish tradition, the word for charity is tzedakah, which comes from the word tzedek, justice. It is a moral, religious, and almost legal obligation. And she won that fight with Boston University, and from now on, charity is an obligation, a necessity, and not just a luxury. And that's the way we all have to think about it. Many of us come from professions or areas where we do have a monopoly. Lawyers are the only people who can go to court and represent people. Doctors are the only people who can treat people. You have to have a license to do most of the things. And with a license, with a monopoly comes an obligation. Our obligation is to make sure that the most needy get what they need, the benefit of our services. The legal profession provides legal services primarily for the top 10%. The job of most lawyers is to make very wealthy people super wealthy, and mega wealthy, you know, not pay as much taxes. And I'm not going to here to quarrel with that any more than I would quarrel with Ken Cole's dressing us all so beautifully. On some people it looks better than on others, but I'm not quarreling with that. But with that comes the obligation, and it's such a deep-seated obligation. And let me tell you, and I know I can speak for all of us who do things that make us happy and make us wealthy and make us successful, nothing gives me more pleasure, and I bet it's true for all of us, than what we do in service. What we do not for pay, not for compensation, but to help people less fortunate. So do yourself a favor and do the world a favor, and in these times of crisis, redouble your effort, redouble your commitment to the public interest. Thank you very much.
I think what Professor Dershowitz just said was that these are the times to try our souls. To try our souls. S-O-L-E. I think that's what he just said. And I agree with him. He is a very wise man, and a very good friend, and very inspiring and every love. So I just want to tell you about the book real briefly, and then I'm going to, and then we can move on. But I want to tell you that, first of all, this isn't my book. This is the book of a lot of individuals who have agreed to share their stories. They're very inspiring stories, and it started with the way we could celebrate our 25th anniversary as a company. And I've always believed that to the degree I can make what I do, in the ordinary course part of something bigger than it is, then we win. Then we've elevated our relationship with the customer, and we've made it more substantive, and it's bigger than any one collection of product. So this is something that we have always done, and we've used our resources to do it, and our 25th anniversary celebration was another one of those resources. And it's a platform, it's the opportunity to talk about something bigger than we are and something more meaningful than we do in the ordinary course. So, but people said, so that's why we set out to do the story. But the story, what we've done is and I figured I would get together some of the people that inspired me over the years so I wouldn't have to do the work. See, this was kind of a cool thing. And I would get them to do the work. I would bring the product together. I would be the accessory, for lack of a better word, I like that word. And we would present the product and share their work, give them a platform, help them tell their story, which we all have to struggle with sometimes because it's very hard with all the clutter out there. The problem is I started speaking to these 9 people who inspired me, and they started telling me who inspired them and who inspires them every day. And those 9 people turned into 90, and last year's Christmas book turned into this year's Christmas book. And had I kept going, it would have been 900, and we never would have gotten it out this year. And it needed to get out there this year because this year is critical, and it is. We all know what's happening right now, and it's the gift of giving. It's the greatest gift. Help people, inspire people who have been inspired. Make this mechanism available to everybody. Read these stories. Every one of these stories, as does Alan's, ends with a call to action, what you could do individually. And it's not about writing a check, which is hard to do these days for most people. But we all have so many extraordinary resources that we just don't know we have. So that's what this book does. And at the end of every one of these essays, they give you advice. Extraordinary people give you extraordinary advice on how you can do wonderful things with your lives. And then at the end of each chapter, there's a where to and how to, and it kind of unfolds the world of resources to all of us. And we all know, I mean, I'm an expert on books because we did one 5 years ago, and we sold 3 copies. And this one, we're not, Abby said she bought one, so I gotta find out who sold the other 2. But I assure you she didn't read it. So that was, but maybe one person read the book. So these are amazing times. There has never been a time since that I can ever remember where there was such an appetite for change and hope and opportunity as there is right now since 2 weeks ago. And we saw the world change, and I think in profound ways that our kids, that will be written about in textbooks forever. And it's so inspiring on so many levels, and as President-elect said that night, quote, "So let us summon a new spirit of patriotism, of service and responsibility, where each of us resolves to pitch in, work hard, and look after not only ourselves but each other." It's what Roosevelt said, it's what FDR said, it's what Kennedy said. He can't fix this without us, and we can't fix this without each other. And at the end of the day, we all know that, and hopefully, and I believe, he will inspire us to do what we know we need to do in and of ourselves. So this initiative, 100% of the net proceeds go to the Awearness Fund, and the Awearness Fund is set up to celebrate, encourage, and empower not just the fight against HIV and homelessness, which we've always done, but all acts of service and volunteerism and social justice. And what else? So there are, you should know by the way, 1,400,000 not-for-profits in this country, and 40,000 new ones every year. There are so many places to go, so many opportunities to get involved. And invariably, what you're going to find out is that, and what every one of these people said in the book is that they felt they were the biggest beneficiary. And you're going to find extraordinary ways that's going to just change your lives. And so, I also, by the way, real quickly, I'm just looking around a bunch of my associates here. Jill, who is our CEO, and Jeff runs a retail store. So this is kind of not me speaking, this is kind of a collective message, and this is what we all do, this is what we believe in, and what inspires us, and what makes this company what it is. So I urge you, please, if you buy the book, there's everything you need to know. The greatest gift of all, the gift of giving, is at your fingertips. You should send this to everybody that you like, and even 2 of you, people you don't like. And I urge you to log on and blog on. We have a blog. I didn't know what the hell a blog was a year ago. Now I'm an expert. And but it's the greatest sense of community where people come together, and it's where people get their news, and where people interact on so many levels. And we have an awareness blog, and we have an awareness website, and where this community now of 90 will become eventually 900. And from there, there's the Awareness Alliance, which you can sign up for. Our community becomes yours. Your platform becomes ours. And so and you can change your outfit, you can outfit change or both, and then finally, alone you're not going to make this place necessarily significantly better, but together we can be an accessory. So thank you all. Please buy the book, and it'll make a big difference on a lot of levels.